Now, here's something that may or may not appear in this week's newsletter. I may not be able to stomach talking about it anymore beyond this segment, but a video went viral this week featuring a clip from a show called 9 Months with Courtney Cox. Now, as the title suggests, the show is supposed to document the journey of various parents through pregnancy, birth, and into the early days and months of raising a newborn. One of the couples profiled in the show are a man and a woman named Ahanu and Patrona. Ahanu is the mom and Patrona is the dad. This is kind of hard to keep track of because, since this is Facebook we're talking about and this is also modern society we're talking about, there's a catch. Ahanu, the mom, identifies as the dad and Patrona, the dad, identifies as the mom. An article on the Federalist gives more background. It says, quote, Ahanu, a female identifying as a male, and her partner Patrona, a male identifying as a female, were caught off guard by the pregnancy news because they both were using hormone replacement therapy. As the episodes go on, Cox claims the couple faces discrimination at the doctor's office because someone wrongly assumed each partner's sex. They didn't even speak to me, Ahanu said. Quote, I just felt like they just made assumptions, making an assumption from the very beginning without even asking our names, not asking a thing about us, Patrona added. Well, just to make a side note here, that's because when it comes to your biological sex, and really we don't need to say biological sex because there's no other kind. But when it comes to your sex, your name doesn't matter. We don't need anything. We don't need to know anything about your personality. We don't need to know what your hobbies are, what your interests, what your hopes and dreams are, because it's all that matters is the biology. They determine that physically. Which is why you could dig up the remains of someone long ago dead and tell what sex they were. You can't interview them. You can't ask their name. You can't ask how they identify. And yet you can tell the sex. Oftentimes. Back to the Federalist. It says, leading up to the home birth, the couple opted to prevent further medical discrimination and trauma. The show also documented the couple's struggle to claim my truth, quote unquote, and choose who in their families will respect their wishes to raise a non-binary child. Ahanu said, quote, the gender binary was very violent, and growing up I had a gender assigned to me and it caused me a lot of unnecessary trauma. It's very lonely and isolating. Like I know my parents could do more. Patrona also expressed reluctance that his family would choose to ignore the baby's sex because their minds are filled with Christian supremacy. Now, this is all deranged enough as it is, but it gets worse. Here is the actual viral clip mentioned earlier. It shows Patrona, the biological father, attempting to breastfeed the newborn. You probably didn't think you'd get a chance to see male breastfeeding on the show today, and you certainly don't want to see it, I'm sure, but here it is anyway. Let's watch.
I just felt really thankful for Ahanu for creating our family.
Oh, I put it over here.
The baby has been able to latch, but I've not been able to produce any milk. It's okay because we're gonna supplement the feeding with formula so that my baby's still getting the nutrients that they need, but I'm still feeling hopeful. I appreciate you so much for all your work. And I appreciate you also, baby. I couldn't have done it without you.
Is he getting any milk? The person behind the camera asks. Well, no, he isn't, because he's being breastfed by his dad. And dads don't produce milk. Now, it'll be pointed out by some people attempting to justify this grotesque display that actually, technically, in some cases, men can lactate, and that's true. There's always people ready with the rare medical exception, saying, "Well, here's this crazy exception I found on Google, which totally undermines the entire sexual binary." There have been a few recorded instances of this due to medical anomalies or other circumstances. I think a certain kind of tumor can have this effect, for example. But these are medical anomalies, rare cases, extreme exceptions. And there's no reliable recorded instance of a man actually producing enough milk to keep a baby fed. There are, however, billions of recorded instances of women producing enough milk for a baby because that is how nature has designed it. But as we've seen, Nature is often told to take a backseat. It is often subverted in order to serve the emotional needs of deluded narcissists. Speaking of narcissism, this is an aspect of our contemporary gender madness, and really our contemporary madness as a whole. It's an aspect that isn't talked about a lot. There's a lot of mental illness at work here, clearly, but there's also something simpler and more common, which is narcissism. The conviction that myself is the center of all things, and all of reality must conform to my expectations for it. There's perhaps no picture that captures narcissism more profoundly or grossly than that of a father calling himself a mother while trying to breastfeed his helpless infant. And what about that infant? We're told that the lifestyle choices other people make are not our business because nobody's being harmed. This isn't hurting anyone but out, they say. But the baby counts as someone. The baby is a person. And he didn't choose to be caught in the middle of this. He didn't choose to become a prop in this macabre stage play. He didn't choose to be part of the costume that is being worn here. And that's the case for many kids born into these sorts of situations, or all of the kids born in these situations. None of them chose it. And really, it's the case for all kids, actually, across all of Western culture, even those with moms and dads who are actually moms and dads and call themselves as such. We have a whole generation of people born into a reality that has been completely redefined to suit what was once a tiny minority. All humans in history until now were born into a world where at least the most basic realities were acknowledged and recognized. We now have at least one generation in the West, and more to follow, who will be deprived of that blessing. And it's a sad thing that we can call it a blessing, that we could call reality, to simply live in reality, to be raised in reality, and to be taught about the most basic aspects of reality. The fact that we have to even call that a blessing now tells you everything you need to know. But we're going to have generations of kids, millions of kids, who are born without that, not given that. So is this affecting someone? Is this harming other people? Yeah, I'd say so. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.